This happened at the White House briefing room, and this should scare you. This should scare you. That these are reporters, and they're acting more like I remember that sketch, The Church Lady. That's what these people are acting like. They're afraid of what this country is founded on. And what is this country founded on? Freedom. And freedom scares them, especially the First Amendment. They really hate the First Amendment. Here, watch this.
Moment, really, in terms of ensuring that Twitter does not become a vector for misinformation.
She's afraid that, she says, what are you doing to make sure that Twitter doesn't become a vector of misinformation? Boy, these guys really, here we go.
Moment, really, in terms of ensuring that Twitter does not become a vector for misinformation. I mean, are you concerned about Elon Musk says there's more and more subscribers coming online. Are you concerned about that? And what tools do you have? Who is it at the White House that is really keeping track of this?
So, oh my, who is keeping track of it? People are talking on Twitter. Are you aware of this? That right now people are being allowed to speak freely on a social media platform. What? I just don't even know what to say about that. What are you? They're talking about this like it's a Class 5 hurricane. Imagine if these hacks showed the same concern about possibility of a nuclear war with Russia and China, instead of being sexually aroused by the possibility. So watch the answer. Watch the answer. Now, the woman who's going to answer is an immigrant. She's female. She's of color, and she's gay. Watch how she handles this question.
Moment, really, in terms of ensuring that Twitter does not become a vector for misinformation. I mean, are you concerned about Elon Musk says there's more and more subscribers coming online. Are you concerned about that? And what tools do you have? Who is it at the White House that is really keeping track of this?
So, look, this is something that we're certainly keeping an eye on. And look, we have always been very clear. And that when it comes to social media platforms, it is their responsibility to make sure that when it comes to misinformation, when it comes to the hate that we're seeing, that they take action, that they continue to take action. Again, we're all keeping a close eye on this. We're all monitoring what's currently occurring.
The White House is keeping a close eye and monitoring people speaking freely on Twitter. They're monitoring it. By the way, the biggest liars of misinformation are her and the government, okay? Joe Biden. Remember when Joe Biden keeps saying that his kid died in Iraq? Joe Biden said that if you get the vaccine, you're not going to get COVID. So these people, I mean, they lie. Joe Biden's the biggest liar in the world. He's a better and bigger liar than Trump. I know that sounds crazy, but I have the receipts. I can show it to you anytime you want. These are the people who are keeping an eye on Americans talking amongst themselves. We're going to keep an eye. That's called Big Brother. And we're watching you. That's what that is. We're watching you.
And we see it with our own eyes of what you all are reporting, and just for ourselves, what's happening on Twitter.
We see it. We see people talking and using free speech and enjoying the protections of the First Amendment. We see it. And it's upsetting. We see people speaking freely in the United States, and it's upsetting. We see it. Isn't it nice to have a woman of color who's gay and an immigrant be a fascist and censorious and take away your freedom of speech? Isn't that fun? It's so much better than having a straight white guy do it. It's less offensive.
But again, social media companies have a responsibility to prevent their platforms from being used by any user to incite violence, especially violence directed at individual communities.
Yeah, that's already done. But it's already being done. That's all. That's called That's already in the law. You don't need Twitter. If somebody is doing something that's illegal on Twitter, don't you think the law enforcement should get involved? Or do you want some jagoff from Silicon Valley who nobody knows to take care of it? If somebody's breaking the law, don't we have law enforcement agencies to take care of that? The answer is yes, we do.
As we have been seeing, and the president has been very clear on calling that out. He'll continue to do that, and we're going to continue to monitor the situation. Go ahead, Phil.
I don't know which one makes me more ill. A journalist asking a question that almost begs for censorship, or that the government admitting it is keeping an eye on Twitter, especially since it's going to be investigated for previously being in cahoots with Twitter to censor users. The government, Apple, Amazon, and Google united in controlling the flow of information. The merger between state and corporate power. Hey, what's it called? What's that called when corporations and the state merge to screw over? I can't remember. It sounds like bashism or something. That's right. Or maybe it's called the Great Reset. Here's a friend of the show, Jay Bhattacharya, says, the Biden administration is hostile to basic civil rights guaranteed in the First Amendment. The most important source of health misinformation is the Biden administration itself. It's far past the time to end the American censorship regime. They don't care about misinformation. Politicians don't care about misinformation, you dupe. They're the ones they want to be able to control the narrative. That's all this is about. It's about the establishment, the oligarchy, the corporate media controlling the narrative. So you don't get to ever question, hey, did the virus come from the Wuhan lab? You're a racist. Why? Because the establishment doesn't want you to know where the virus came from because they funded it. So they call you a racist and say you're a misinformer, and they call you a conspiracy theorist and smear you. And the people who did all that lying, nothing ever happens to those people. Fauci, the government, the people in corporate media, nothing ever happens to those people. Everyone pretends Joe Rogan's the asshole, even though he got everything right. So let me bring in Craig. Craig, what?
I don't know, Jimmy. I think you're underestimating what KJP is saying over here. I mean, just the other day, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson from Texas said that words are violence. And, you know, I'm joining the likes of Moby and Jim Carrey, and I'm going to ban Twitter and boycott it and get out of there and listen to Alyssa Milano. And, you know, so what if they took Garland Nixon down and they don't want the doctors up? I mean, they're a bunch of quacks. This is misinformation, and we need to fight it, Jimmy. It can't be underestimated over here.
Yeah. So Elon Musk said this, the Twitter file. So this happened, that little exchange happened right after this. The Twitter files on free speech suppression, soon to be published on Twitter itself. The public deserves to know what really happened. So he's claiming, he's threatening, this got 800,000 likes. He's claiming that he's going to make public the algorithm and the methods they use to censor people. That's what that says, right?
Somewhat. He's going to show what they use, the way the government colluded with big tech, the Biden administration. He's not really showing us what we need to see, and that's the algorithm overall.
Oh, so he's not going to show us the algorithm, but he will show.
No. Yeah,
he will show the collusion between the government and the former administration at Twitter.
Exactly. Red meat.
Okay. Jake Shields says, I would love to see how they used shadow banning. Me too. Because I know I'm shadow banned. Mm-hmm. So here was Twitter. Michael Tracy got this. Twitter policy before 2015. So here it is, but he condensed it. Basically, it says, no direct threats of violence. Beyond that, Twitter doesn't mediate disputes between users or remove offensive content. If you feel a law was broken, contact the frickin' police. That's basically what this says. It says Twitter provides a global communication platform which encompasses a variety of users with different voices, ideas, and perspectives. As a policy, we do not mediate content or intervene in disputes between users. So you may not make direct, specific threats of violence. This is all just the First Amendment law. And they say down here, if you believe content or behavior you're reporting is prohibited in your local jurisdiction, please contact your local authorities. There's already laws on the books for all this stuff. You don't need extra laws on Twitter. And what they've done is they very sneakily, this is the sleight of hand that the establishment has done, is they've equated free speech with hate speech. So if you're for free speech, you're against minority groups because then people will be able to hurl hate speech at them. And so you should be against free speech because it hurts minority groups. Do you see what utter garbage that is? Do you know who they want? The only thing minority groups have is their speech. That's their power. And so what they really want to do is make sure the minority opinion doesn't get heard. They're not trying to protect minorities. They want to make sure marginalized people don't have a voice because those are the people that get censored. They're not going to use censorship against the fucking establishment, against corporate media lying or billionaire-funded media lying. They're going to use it against marginalized groups who are going against the status quo, are going against the establishment. People like whoever would want to protest. Like right now, it would be those railroad strikers. They would use that to shut them down under the guise of protecting minorities from hate speech. It's not like, so then get this. He goes, it's not like Twitter was run by a bunch of conservative Republicans in 2015. It was still generically liberal, but this was pre-2016 election. That he's talking about these rules. This was pre-2016 election when everything really went haywire. Today, these generic liberal policies would get castigated as far right or extremists. So again, we didn't change. It's the Democratic Party and the establishments that shifted to the right. They became right-wingers. So now if you say you're for free speech, they call you a right-winger. That's exact. First, I've told you, hopefully if you're a new viewer, they'll never engage you. If you're on the left of someone, of a Democrat, the first thing they do is they don't engage your idea. They first smear you and slander you as a right-winger. That's the first thing they do. And then they'll misrepresent your ideas, and then maybe they'll engage you. And so this is what he's saying. He's saying, hey, the same thing that people like me are standing up for is what the policy of Twitter was before the Donald Trump election of 2016. But now if you're for that thing that all the lefties embraced, now you're a right-winger. Might be clever for Elon Musk to just copy and paste the 2015 policy. And then, when the cries of fascist inevitably rained down on him, simply ask if Twitter was institutionally fascist in 2015. Were they? You mean you guys didn't care it was fascist back then? You only care now? Michael, that was back when we thought Hillary was going to win. Before what we now call Sam Harris's 9/11. That's when that was. It sounds crazy to say this, but I'm pretty sure America went more batshit after Trump won than after 9/11. And I say that only because I remember corporate media occasionally not lying in the aftermath of 9/11. Elon Musk responds to Michael Tracy saying that he should just copy and paste their old, and he goes, that makes sense. And let me just read you this. By the way, you know the biggest misinformation. Here's CNN outright lying about, they had to doctor his photo. They made him, this is what he looked like when he had COVID. This is what they made him look like he was dying. You remember they did that? And they lied about ivermectin at the top of their lungs. The biggest misinformers is the government and the corporate media. They'll lie about someone who's actually, so this is a marginalized voice in the COVID narrative, in the COVID debate. By the way, there was no COVID debate because Joe Rogan tried to have one and they shut him down. They lied about him. They smeared him. They said he was sicker than he was. They lied about ivermectin. They lied about early treatments. They lied about everything. Here's here, let me read you this. There must be no barriers to freedom of inquiry. There is no place for dogma in science. The scientist is free and must be free to ask any question. Any question. Like, where did the virus come from? A lab? Hey, what's natural immunity about? Hey, what's herd immunity about? Hey, is this a non-sterilizing? Hey, does this actually work? Hey, where's the data? That kind of questions that you weren't allowed to ask during COVID. Hey, where's the science on lockdowns? Where's the science on masks? Where's the science on these on the jab? Where's the science on all this? You weren't allowed to ask any of those questions, and the people who were immediately discredited in the press, the corporate press that is owned by Big Pharma, and dismissed as a kook. People who were the leading scientists and doctors in their fields were dismissed and called kooks. Why? Because they were the leading people in their fields, and Dr. Fauci couldn't have reputable people disagreeing with him publicly, so they had to immediately smear them and discredit them. That's what the government does. They're not there to protect free speech. So the scientist is free and must be free to ask any question, to doubt any assertion, to seek for any evidence, to correct any errors. Our political life is also predicated on openness. We know that their only way to avoid error is to detect it, and the only way to detect it is to be free to inquire. And we know that as long as men are free to ask what they must, free to say what they think, free to think what they will, freedom can never be lost, and science can never regress. Now let me bring in Craig. Craig, what do you have to say about all this?
Well, I'm just curious to where you guys are at when you think or talk about Elon Musk. You know, there's a lot of this stuff. You know, what Mike Tracy pointed out. Mike Tracy has a lot of work. He was old school, going after the Bilderberg Group and doing a lot of reports on that. But you look at the situation. All this happened after 2015, 2016, and it just makes me think about Trump and Musk and where we are today, because people really did have TDS. And then all of a sudden, when it came to our speech, you got just heavily smeared, demonetized, and suppressed. If you talked about elections, you were a domestic terrorist. If you stood up against Ukraine, the aids of Ukraine, you were an anti-LGBT person. You're allowing a fascist leader like Putin get away with it. But if it makes sense, if this does make sense, why hasn't he done it already? Why are the doctors still demonetized? Why are they still their accounts haven't been installed? The McCulloughs, the Malones, all these people who don't have accounts, why haven't they done that? And then I constantly look at what Elon Musk has talked about. He's constantly talked about WeChat in China, and WeChat is one of these apps which allows you to do everything, pay for everything. It's buy things, order things, converse with people. It's like one app to control it all. So as this thing is going on, I'm just wondering and curious where you guys are at. And we have these talks about this all the time with our friends. Is like, what do you think Musk's motives really are? Is he all about bringing about free speech? Why did people like Garland Nixon's, accounts get suspended? Why haven't people come back? So, right now I just look at the whole situation, and I still think it's just theater played out in front of us for eventually more control down the road. I don't see this, maybe a little bit right now, where we're pointing out certain things, what Musk is doing, but I don't foresee us really having free speech online in the near future.
Well, we're going to have a bigger discussion about this in our next segment, because our next segment is all about the people who've been unbanned from Twitter recently. So we'll get more into that. I don't have high hopes for Musk, but I'll take any hope wherever I can get. He's obviously a billionaire oligarch who's in bed with the military-industrial complex, so he's not going to be. He hasn't mentioned Julian Assange. So, anyway, but this should scare the shit out of everyone. When you see reporters begging the government to censor, and the government saying that they were, believe me, we're gonna. But we see what's going on. We see people out there doing free speech. Like, what in the F? And they're begging for it. Wow. Hey, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, December 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th. And we're going to be in Tempe, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets. See you there.